Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Sunday, May 30th, 2021. Fire potential impacts for the next few days include some thunderstorm activity over central and eastern Utah today. We do have critically dry fuels across the southern third of the Great Basin. On Monday, we'll begin to see some heat start to build into the western Great Basin with some slightly elevated winds over western Utah, and a continuation of some isolated thunderstorms over far southeast Utah. Then on Tuesday, the thunderstorms go away and the winds lighten up, but we continue to build in heat further eastward into the central Great Basin. Yesterday, we did have some lightning activity over the central Nevada mountains and the higher elevations of northeast Utah with some light precip totals. And our fire activity is shown here for the last 24 hours. Again, that larger goat fire and a few smaller fires elsewhere. ERCs continue to be pretty high, especially across the south where those values are above the 80th percentile in a couple of stations, even over the 90th, and starting to set records for the time of year. If we look closer at west central Utah, those values are much above normal and are approaching the all-time highs for the time of year. And further south over the Arizona Strip and far southwest Utah, those values are above the 90th percentile and are setting records for the time of year. This morning's satellite imagery shows that moisture in place over Utah today. That will kick off those isolated thunderstorms over the central and eastern portions of the state today. So again, a little bit of moisture in place over eastern Utah. Elsewhere, pretty dry. We don't have any high risk issued for these thunderstorms, although some of them may lead to some initial attack. Again, looking at this image on the left, showing our precipitation for the day, expecting to see some of these storms produce some measurable precipitation, maybe heavier storms up to even 1/2 inch over the Uintas and the Book Cliffs here. But some of the other storms will be on the drier side. And the winds for this afternoon, strongest winds, of course, are going to be outflows from those thunderstorms, but we also could see some breezier winds across western Utah. On Monday, drier air continues to move into most of the Great Basin, although just some lingering isolated thunderstorms over far southeast Utah. No high risk issued for any of that. Again, looking for where we expect to see that precipitation, really just across far southeast Utah on Monday. Winds picking up a little bit over western and northern Utah for Wednesday as that moisture exits the region. On Tuesday, the main story going into midweek is going to be the ridge building in. On Tuesday, it's centered over northern California with some warm air moving into the Great Basin. Highs on Tuesday will be in the low 90s over much of western Nevada and across the south. Vegas hits the 100-degree mark. Minimum relative humidities are also quite low in many of these areas, single digits across the south. 3-day precipitation totals show the moisture for mainly today over the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah, with some lingering storms for tomorrow. Then on Wednesday, the ridge remains very dominant over the Great Basin for continued very warm, above normal temperatures. Those 90-degree temperatures should begin to move further east over Utah by Wednesday and into Thursday with that ridge still in place. On Thursday, it does look like a little bit of moisture tries to squeak in as a trough moves into the Pacific Northwest, so we may see a slight increase in some thunderstorm activity and the chance for some winds to pick up as well out ahead of this trough. It doesn't look like that trough does anything significant in terms of precipitation. However, it just kind of scoots off to the north and the east with continued warm and dry, generally dry conditions over the Great Basin. And more of the same is expected into Saturday. We'll have to keep an eye on the wind forecast as this little trough moves across the north. In that Thursday to Saturday time frame, we could have some increased winds over Idaho and possibly the northern parts of Nevada and Utah. Our dryness levels are transitioning to yellow across northern Nevada and northern Utah and even southern Idaho by next weekend. 7-day totals showing just that little bit of moisture in the short term, and then with that next trough moving into the Pacific Northwest later in the work week next week could bring some precipitation mainly to the mountains of central and western Idaho. The extended forecast is calling for above normal temperatures, especially for Utah and Nevada, and below normal precipitation pretty much across the basin. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.